I'm Peter. Welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, where we take the mystery out of the tarot and help you bring this ancient practice into everyday life. In this podcast, we'll talk about life, tarot, and everything in between. So grab your tarot deck, get comfortable, and start your journey to tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter, and welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Today, we're going to talk about the tarot in popular culture. So now I always think about popular culture, and I think about, esoteric or woo-woo topics. I think astrology owns this space. You can't open a print publication without seeing the daily horoscopes. Everybody, even people who have no interest whatsoever in, anything metaphysical or esoteric, they likely know if they're a Sagittarius or a Scorpio or a Libra. They don't even probably know why they are, and they might even call it their star sign when in fact it's their sun sign. But most people have this idea of astrology because it really does, have a prominent place in popular culture and images and movies. We see it in print. And today we're going to talk about the tarot in the same light. We're going to share some examples as to where we might find the tarot, because we can find it in places like fashion and film and TV and music and print media. So we're going to explore some of those examples, and we're actually going to ask you if there are examples that you're aware of to share them in the comment section on whatever platform that you're listening to us or watching us. So we're inviting you to interact with us in this particular episode. But before we get started, Bonnie and I are going to share a little bit about what we've got going on in this tarot space. So Bonnie, can you let people know where they can find you and what you've got going on in the next little bit?
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Actually, when this episode airs, I will be in Fergus, Ontario. So I don't know where you're listening from, but if you're close by, come and see me. I'll be at the Sportsplex, I believe. Luna Events is putting on an enchanting evening market, an evening holiday market. So I'll be there, and I'll be doing mini tarot readings and selling some eye pillows and card wraps. So if you're in the area, please stop by and say hi. And then on December 8th, I will be in Vaughan, and at the Bellevue Manor at the Holistic Healing Fair. Same, I will be available for mini tarot readings and selling eye pillows and card wraps. So if you're in that area on December the 8th, I'd love to see you. So come by and say hi. And if you just want to get to know me a little bit more or see what I do, you can go to my website, which is breathewithbonnie.com. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Breathe with Bonnie. And everything you need to know about me is probably there and what I'm doing. So how about you, Peter? What do you have going on and where can people find you?
That's great. Well, first I'll say, a couple of in-person opportunities for people to find you and get to know you a little bit. So that's fantastic. So for me, the big thing that I've been working on right now is a course that I have coming up. The live course is actually starting December the 3rd, and it's called Planning 2025 with the Tarot. So it's a 3-lesson course. In the first lesson, we'll explore the themes of the Hermit, which is the card for the year 2025. We'll take a look and we'll explore each of the monthly cards and how we go about actually calculating your personal monthly major arcana card for 2025. Lesson 2, I'll take a look at an overview of the minor arcana and how it links to the different sections of the year. I'll introduce what I call the year ahead spread, which is a spread that sort of helps you put or organize planning information using the tarot. So using the tarot to be sort of your major planning tool for 2025. And then we'll wrap things up in lesson 3. We'll go a little bit deeper into that year ahead spread. We'll look at examples of the spread in action. And then, we'll answer any questions you might have. So if this sounds interesting to you head on over to my website, peterwhitetarot.com, and register for the, planning 2025 with the tarot. Again, same, if you want to follow what's happening, you can always follow me on my socials, which is Peter White Tarot on both Instagram and on Facebook. So, that's what I've got going on over the next little bit as we kind of finish off 2024.
I know it's hard to believe we're
I know.
end of November.
I know.
How did that happen?
I know. The other thing I wanted to mention, I actually want to say, a big thank you to Allison, our last podcast guest, because I don't think we were an hour after having recorded the episode. I ran over to Healing Moon, which is our local, esoteric friendly store, and bought myself this. Oh no, wait, I did buy that. That was gifted this. Wrong one. I was hanging up where'd I put it? Right here. I was gifted the Oracle Tarot. I bought the Talisman Oracle. And I've already done a little bit of work with it. She had talked about the idea of finding an Oracle deck that really resonates with you, that speaks to you. I immediately went there and started kind of digging into the shelf and found one that combines a little bit of magical work along with, sort of an Oracle system. And I can already see what she means by having something that resonates with you, that you're more likely to work with it as well. So I just wanted to say, for those of you, if you haven't watched episode 26 with Allison
DiNicola, yep.
Please go and watch it. And then, I want to say a big thank you here in episode 27 to Allison for pushing me to head out of my comfort zone and going to pick up an Oracle deck. So it was good.
You've been bitten by the Oracle bug now.
Look, I hope not. I really hope not. I've been bitten by the board game bug. I've been bitten by the tarot card bug. There's only so many bugs I can get bitten by. Right?
There's only so much skin.
That's exactly it. So, and only so much space.
Yes, for sure.
All right. So shall we dig into the tarot and popular culture?
Yes, for sure. I'm going to let you start this one, Peter, because you have a ton of examples.
Well,
so I'm going to let you start us off with your most favorite example of tarot in popular culture.
So I'll start. I will start with my most favorite. I'll let people know too. I do find this to be quite fascinating, and in my the beginner's journey course in the Learn the Tarot series, I do talk about this in lesson 1. I talk about, how we integrate how the tarot is integrated into popular culture. So if you're interested in a course structure, head on over and take a look at that. My favorite is always the musical connection, and I think I've probably mentioned it on a few episodes, is the inner album sleeve. Now, I don't know where you would find it now that we stream our music. But, when I was growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, and, you'd buy an album, the vinyl album came obviously in a sleeve. And in this particular album, and I'm referring to Led Zeppelin 4, sometimes called the Four Seals, sometimes called So-So, sometimes called the Unnamed album. In the inside of the album is actually the image of the Hermit, not quite from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but is clearly an image that is the Hermit, a tarot-based hermit. It's an older man standing on a precipice with a starred lantern, in their hand, sort of showing, guiding the world or providing light to themselves. And the reason why I'm almost positive that it's a tarot influence is because Jimmy Page, the guitarist for Led Zeppelin, was a huge fan of the work of Aleister Crowley. As a matter of fact, he bought his mansion. He bought original manuscripts and books from his collection, and he was known to have some pretty odd behaviors that, in some ways, were sort of linked to Aleister Crowley's behavior as well. So that's always my favorite. But I don't think it's the only one around music. I think you had one that you were thinking of that was kind of linked to the tarot and music as well in popular culture.
Yes, I'm very proud of myself for finding this out. I had to do some digging. So Peter knows this stuff. ready. And I was like, okay, we're going to talk about tarot and popular culture. Where am I going to go with this? So I did a little investigating and was actually quite shocked to find this one. And again, you can either agree with me or disagree with me in the comments, but I think the links are pretty interesting here. So there's a song called The Fool on the Hill by the Beatles. And I watched the video because I wanted to see if there was, any links to the Fool card. And it is amazing. So I can't tell you for sure that this song is based on the Fool card, but I'm going to tell you that there are so many images in the video that look like the Fool card. So it's either coincidental or it was based on that card. So in the very beginning, they're like on a tour bus, and I can't remember if it's one of the band members or if it's just somebody else on the bus. They're wearing a top hat and there's feathers in the hat. So right off the bat, number one. And then Paul McCartney is in the bus and he's wearing a hat with flowers in the hat, like yellow sunflowers. I'm like, okay, we're getting started. So then the whole video, Paul McCartney is on a hill, like on a mountain. There's clouds, and then the sun comes up. At one point, there's a white dog, right, running behind some people in a scene. And another scene, he picks up his jacket and he puts it over his shoulder. There are so many nods to the Fool card in that song, and even in the lyrics. I can't remember exactly how they go, but he was talking about the sun. And I think he was talking about the sun setting. And a lot of times we think about the sun rising in the Fool card, but we don't know for sure. It could be setting, right? Like it could be coming down. So it was very interesting to me. And I know that a lot of the Beatles music was definitely inspired by esoteric and mysticism. And Peter, I think you have a little bit of trivia about this as well that might actually reinforce my belief that this song could really well be based on the Fool card. So
yeah. Well, when we were talking ahead of time, just sort of planning the episode before we hit the record button, when Bonnie was talking about the idea of the Fool on the Hill, I had to go look and see, well, what album was it on? Because I know that on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band are just a ton of people that you can find there, but one of them is Aleister Crowley. So the creator of the Book of Thoth, or the Thoth Tarot, as we sometimes call it today, is one of the characters that shows up on on the album. So they were certainly aware of Crowley. Somebody was. They put him on there. So if you're aware of Crowley, you're usually aware of his magical work and then aware of the tarot as well. I'm pretty sure that some of the images that you're talking about, that they would have been influenced by, by the Fool card for sure.
yeah, like it's uncanny how similar a lot of it is. So, I found something else, again, not tarot specific, but could have been influenced by this. And I'm gonna pass this one to you, Peter, because you actually sing this song. I don't think I'm gonna embarrass you, but so Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, possibly my favorite song by the Rolling Stones, actually. And this was from when I was a teenager. Like, so this isn't even me studying the tarot and loving that song. I've always loved that song. So how do you think that song, like the lyrics in that song, actually are representative of the devil card in the tarot?
Totally. Well, I think the chorus, and I appreciate you passing it on to me. And for those who don't know, I've mentioned before, I play in an 80s cover band, but one of the songs that we do that are not in the 80s is Sympathy for the Devil. And it's actually the only song that when we perform it, I actually come from behind the keyboard stack and I actually sing or try and sing.
He does. He sings it really well. He's being humble.
It's the chorus. It's, pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. There's that. It introduces the playful nature of the devil card, because I've often referred to the concept of the devil as being the sex, drugs, and rock and roll card. And it certainly is a card about our hidden fears and our hidden desires. It is definitely a card that can be about the nefarious side of humanity which Jagger talks about as well. He talks about warfare. He talks about the 100 Years' War. He talks about, the execution of leaders. He talks also about, almost the corruption of power, which is a theme that we would find in the Devil card. So he really does, although he might not specifically be talking about the card itself, he's definitely talking about the archetype, of the devil, and the voice that he takes on when he's singing it is the voice of Lucifer. That's literally what he says, eventually says, you can call me Lucifer. Like, he's like, that's who he is. So it's an interesting example of both, I guess, the card and the archetype of the devil. It's a great way to find it. And again, we invite you, if there are elements in music where you think they might connect to the tarot, or where they obviously connect to the tarot, please, by all means, share them in the comments. We, as two people who are fascinated by the tarot, we would love to learn more about some of these connections. So should we look at other areas? Like, we
Sure.
said we'd explore film, TV, print, art, fashion. You had an interesting one around fashion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so excited to have found this. Again, Peter knew this, and I was just like, "Oh my God, did you know?" And he's like, "Yes."
Huh. I didn't. Did I
So,
say it?
no, he
Was it
didn't
like,
say it like that. No, no, no. So in 2021, but I guess there were other ones. I'm going to specifically talk about Christian Dior's Haute Couture Spring Summer of 2021 fashion collection. They used um, the archetypes in the major arcana. So I found a beautiful video online that actually showed the entire collection, and it specified the card that they used to inspire the design, that specific design. And I'll quickly read off all of the cards, but they were beautiful. There was a whole story that went with it. I believe it was called Le Chateau du Tarot, I think was the name of I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. But they showed the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Lovers, Strength, Wheel of Fortune, Justice, Hanged Man, Temperance, the Unnamed Arcana, which, if you know from like a Marseille type deck, is Death, card 13. Temperance, Devil, Star, Moon, and Sun. And this collection was
huh?
beautiful.
They basically
And the
did them
way
all.
Almost.
Yeah.
There were a few that I thought they were going to do all of them, and then there were a few that they didn't
Mhm.
do. And a lot of them focused around the feminine energy that is typically represented in those cards. And just it put me in another world, and it really gave me this visceral physical experience of being that archetype as I saw them in these gowns. And they sort of did it as a story where this girl comes into a castle and she meets justice. And I was just like, oh, like I could feel it in my body. And I was like, I love tarot. It was so amazing. So again, you can see why Peter and I get so excited about the tarot. There's certain things that just really light us up. And I thought that was brilliant. Like, here's Christian Dior, this incredible icon of fashion, creating fashion based on a deck, I'm going to say it wrong, the Visconti Sforza tarot deck.
No, that's
And
it.
yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. If you get an opportunity to go and see pictures of that collection or try to find that video, it was amazing. So those are my my nods to pop culture and
The pop
tarot. But
culture.
you have a lot more to share, Peter. What do you
Well,
want to talk about?
I've got nothing in fashion, but I'm always fascinated when we think of of either TV or film. So yeah, I've got a few there, but the one, and even famous people in TV. So I think if people are familiar with Dan Levy, both actor and writer and producer of the mega hit Schitt's Creek, he actually posts about his tarot readings online. So Trevor Ballin is his tarot reader. And when he gets a reading done with Trevor, he actually posts. Now, I don't know if he ever posts the entire reading. He certainly doesn't go into an awful lot of detail. But he he's very upfront about the fact that he uses the tarot and particularly and specifically Trevor's guidance in his life. Actually, there was an interview that he did for a major publication, and I can't remember which one it is, but I definitely read it. I'd found it online that where he talks about his experience getting guidance through, with the tarot through Trevor. So, I always think about that, but then, I think about shows that I watch because my wife and I had watched Mad Men when it had first come out, and I would notice at the end of every single episode in the credits is a small picture of the Sun card. So I was like, oh, and we had started watching when it first came out. So I was like, well, that's actually quite interesting. And then in season 2, and I can't remember which episode, I probably could go in and dig in. You can as well. Don Draper gets a tarot reading done. Now, he gets the tarot reading done as Dick Whitman, which is actually the alter ego and real name of kind of Don Draper. I don't want to be a spoiler if anybody hasn't seen the series yet, but he actually gets a tarot reading done. He actually gets the Celtic Cross done, which is probably the most popular 10 card, tarot reading ever. And, he gets the Sun reversed, and he gets, I think, the Eight of Wands, and he gets the Eight of Cups, and he gets the Page of Pentacles. And this reader kind of gives him guidance based on this actual reading. And I think what's really interesting is its launch into both pop and tarot culture is that you can Google, Don Draper tarot reading, and you actually have tarot readers who online interpret the reading that Don Draper got. So they try and put their own interpretation onto this particular reading. So I thought, Mad Men was an award-winning show with, Elizabeth Moss and Ham. I can't remember his first name now. Guy who played Don Draper. It's going to come to me. So an award-winning show that obviously pays homage to both a tarot
card. John Hamm?
John Hamm. Thank you. Yeah, chiseled jaw, Superman looking kind of guy. I knew his last name was Hamm, and so, we're not talking about fringe TV here. We're talking about, kind of mainstream TV. But I had mentioned, I think we had both talked about this. I think the first sort of use of the tarot in any kind of mainstream, TV or film is Jane Seymour's portrayal of Solitaire in the James Bond movie Live and Let Die, where
1973.
Right, exactly. And then again, we're talking about, this is a massive movie, which, Paul McCartney and Wings did the theme song for it. It was a huge hit. It and Solitaire. Now, although it's not really a reading, she's kind of flipping cards and, giving, it might be a French. I think she has a partial French, partial Haitian accent where she's giving, these interpretations, very mystic like, and, she uses language like, a man comes and big pregnant pause. He travels over water. He has purpose. And as she's giving each of these iterations, she's flipping a card from, and you said you knew the deck that it was from.
Oh, yes. Okay, let me look that up. Sorry. It was Witches something.
The Tarot of the Witches. Isn't that what you had said?
Yes, Tarot of the Witches by Fergus Hall. Yep.
Correct. And I think, Bonnie, it was you that was reminding me that the presence of the tarot in this movie helped sort of re-spark interest in the tarot in the early and mid 70s. But, again, this is the kind of magical, mystical presence of the tarot in a mainstream movie. This movie was huge. So, those are kind of my two examples. I'll finish off with a more recent example when we, kind of tie things up around, TV and movie. But did you Did you have any in that genre you wanted to share? Anything you wanted to add around any of those things?
No.
Okay.
I don't
So
think I don't think I have any more.
I'm going to add two, and because they're relatively recent, just because we've talked about music from the '70s, we talk about a show from the kind of the night or the I think the noughties and tens. I think Mad Men was probably 2010, 2011, 2012, and in that range. One movie that actually is out and still streaming right now is a movie that is called Tarot, and I think its release date is actually 2024. It is right in my wheelhouse as far as genres go. I haven't watched it yet, but I put the word out to friends of mine, as we are kind of in Scorpio spooky season right now. Perfect time to be able to watch it. It is, your typical horror movie. Group of kids go to a cabin, somebody finds a tarot deck, and they decide they're going to start playing. And without giving too much away, because I'm describing the trailer, as they flip cards of the major arcana, the cards themselves come to life. And the
Great. So it's going to be all those myths that we're trying to tell people
correct.
doesn't happen when you play the tarot.
You know what's
Or
so
when you use
funny
the tarot.
is if you go again onto into some tarot spaces, there are some tarot practitioners that are extremely upset about the negative portrayal of the tarot. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say I am not one of them, because I believe any press is good press, because what it does is it actually gets people talking about the tarot. So if somebody believes, oh my goodness, here we go, this tarot, like, we can't play with this stuff. It's evil and bad stuff's going to happen. And, the high priestess, creepy high priest is going to come out of the closet, gives people an opportunity to talk about what the tarot actually is. So
Mm.
would I like a more positive introduction to tarot for people who don't know it? Sure. But the fact that the title of the movie is Tarot, the end, that it is actually called tarot, I hope is going to make people who are interested in the genre also interested to finding out more about the tarot. So that is one current example. And look, it's been on my radar to watch for a while, but we've just been traveling and I always think TV watching is something I save for our northern sort of winter time where,
Hibernation.
exactly, right? It's that hibernation time in the spring, summer, and fall. I like to be outside. The second one, though, is Agatha All Along. And why I'm not watching this? So this is currently running as we speak. I think it streams on Disney Plus. It's done by Marvel. It's a spinoff of WandaVision. So it's in the MCU, which for those of you who don't know is the Marvel comic universe, of which I am a big fan, but have yet to watch this show. So as I was kind of digging in, now I knew that there was an episode, I think it's episode 7 in season 1, where they actually have a tarot spread, and the episode, much of the episode is centered around this tarot reading. So I'd known that, and only because Benabel Wen, who I follow and whose information I value, actually did a blog post around this particular reading. But as I started to kind of go into it, like this is a show where the tarot actually shows up what looks like in every single episode. Now, this is a show that is actually put out by Marvel, a major studio. It's actually Agatha All Along is their first sort of TV series in the Marvel comic universe, and it's being streamed by Disney Plus, which is also a major, streaming service that's kind of offering something that, although is not tarot specific, is definitely magic specific and tarot adjacent. So, for those of you who are looking to sort of go and explore a little bit about the tarot in popular culture, those are two areas to go. If you don't mind what I think is going to be some pretty creepy horror genre, then the movie Tarot would be a good spot for you to go. I think in the US it streams on Netflix. I think here in Canada, I thought it was on Crave, but maybe it's not. It's definitely available through a streaming service. And then, Agatha All Along, which is on Disney Plus, there are two things when I go into hibernation mode, which will come pretty soon now as temperatures start to drop. I will definitely watch. No spoilers though. I'm not giving anything away. But these are examples of where we find the tarot in popular culture. Again, examples of astrology in popular culture pretty common. anytime anything, is centered around a witch, or any kind of witchy topic, there's usually something that also centers around, some astrological symbolism or symbology. Whereas the tarot is relatively rare to find. Those are two recent examples. No, I don't know. Anyways, that was the digging that I did into film and TV. I don't know if you've got any more, if you want to take us in another direction here, Bonnie.
Well, I'm going to say that my kids have been saying, "Hey, mom, we should watch the movie Tarot."
There you go.
And mom is like, "No, thank you."
Well,
Yeah.
do you not watch them? Because I know people who watch horror movies and they spend most of the time with their hands covering their eyes and kind of watching through little spread fingers so they can close them really quickly. Is that you?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
me. There's a few reasons, I think. Speaking to all the empaths out there, when
Yeah.
we watch TV, movie, anything where something is happening, you can actually feel what those people are experiencing on the TV. So it is traumatic for me to watch things that are horrifying or being scared or somebody's getting stabbed or whatever. I'm just like, ow, like, it affects me in a physical way, and I don't want to feel like that. And sometimes I kind of get like hangover. I'll watch these movies or shows that are really disturbing, and they keep playing through my mind. I can't sort of cut the cord and let that go. So it's not so much about being scared, it's about kind of feeling what they're going through. So if anybody else is experiencing that and your whole family loves horror movies or like, these action films with all this like fighting and killing, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm good, then like you're my peeps, because my family always makes fun of me. I'm like, I'm just gonna go to bed. Like, you guys watch whatever you want. So I think, and as a child, I was like that. I literally would watch
Watch that.
movies, yeah, because we were huge. My parents watched horror movies and all that stuff, and I did as a kid. And as I got older, I'm like, this is too hard on my nervous system. Like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But the Agatha all along,
Yeah.
is that what
Yeah.
it's called?
Yep. Agatha
So
all
my
along.
Okay, so my eldest daughter is a huge Marvel fan, huge, and I either she doesn't know about this or but I'm gonna be like, excuse me, I'm gonna watch this thing with you.
There you
That's a little
go.
more like I'll dive into the Marvel stuff. Even some of it's a little, my kids will be like, well, there's killing in it. I'm like, it's a little bit is okay. It's just too much is too much for me. So
That's
I'm definitely gonna check that one out.
okay. Well, and for me, I'm an early fan of the genre. I think the first novel, and I might have mentioned this before, the first novel I ever read was Peter Benchley's Jaws. And I would have been maybe 10 or 11, and I've been reading ever since. Stephen King is by far my favorite author. I've read everything he's ever put out. As a matter of fact, one of the examples I'll talk about in pop culture and art, involves Stephen King. But for those people, so I've always loved the intensity of a horror movie. And so for and of the genre, and for those who are astrologically inclined, I'm just going to say a phrase where you'll perfectly understand where that comes from. Venus in Scorpio in the first house. So
Mm.
I love the intensity, and the dark intensity of that genre. So I will without a doubt be watching the movie Tarot maybe before we record our next episode. So
Well, and I've listened to podcasts about actors and people who are in horror movies, that it is a form of healing, right? Like there is something that takes place when you're, in that situation. So I totally get why people are drawn to that or people are entertained by that. That's fine. But for me, like it's either something that I need to heal within myself, but I can't handle it anymore. The
we
older I get, the more scared I am, I guess.
we have an upcoming podcast guest that
Mm.
we could actually ask that question to. So
Yes.
I hope you'll park that one and ask that question. As again, as a fan of the genre, because I know this person actually has a product that's now currently on YouTube for viewing. Um, going to ask them. So then this way we can say, look, we just did an episode on, so we can link it in some way to the tarot, cross our fingers and hope that they answer. But
Yes, we may be having a horror movie actor on our
yes,
podcast
we may,
soon.
we may.
Sooner rather than later.
Sooner rather than later. When I mentioned Stephen King, the one thing I wanted to mention was art and the tarot, because David Palladini, who right was the
I'm going to use this deck.
There you go, right, of the Aquarian Tarot. He is also he's a well-known illustrator and artist, and the reason I know him and I knew of him in this genre first, and then was like, oh my goodness, he has a deck. Is he was the illustrator for Stephen King's kind of fantasy novel Eye of the Dragon. So it was it's not actually a horror book, despite the fact that Stephen King is the king of horror of the genre itself. It is more fantasy, and it's actually more kind of dragon style fantasy. And it's but the original version actually had illustrations in it, and it's David Palladini who did them. And then, of course, Salvador Dali, who
my favorite,
is, right?
Yes,
surrealist. A lot of people would know him from the picture he's got with the floppy clocks that sort of bend and hang down. Also, actually created a 78 card tarot deck. Not.
If you have that deck, let us know. I want to see it.
Yeah,
we can't get it in Canada.
Yeah, can't. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know if I'm not sure whether it's mass produced anywhere, but we definitely can't get it here. So you talk about the idea even of art making its way into the tarot world, and vice versa, the connections with popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
Did we miss anything? Like it's so funny. I think we had said, oh, we're not going to have an awful lot to talk about in this episode. It's going to be a short one. And we always seem to dig deep and find some examples and stuff. So,
well, we don't just talk about tarot on this podcast, do we, Peter?
That's right. That's right. Look at this. We had movie, music, television, print, art, fashion. You got it all today, right? You got it all today.
Who knew you could link fashion and tarot together?
Right. All right. So, should we do our card draw then, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
You inspired me because we were talking about the Aquarian Tarot right before we got on.
I'm going to use it.
I'm going to use it too.
Oh, wow. No, I'm not going to use it because.
Oh, you're not using it.
I'm not using it. No, you go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going to use the Tarot of the Abyss, actually. So.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to use Aquarian Tarot because it has a total 70s vibe.
Yeah. And doesn't it though?
Yes.
I know.
Those mustaches.
Yep. The mustache on the magician. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
And it's in a tin. If you haven't heard me talk about, like, I am a sucker for like these cute little tins.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to draw first then, or?
You go ahead. Do you have your card?
I've got my cards. I'm shuffling. I have also, and you had mentioned the idea of shuffling music, just so people know. Oh. I'm working on the composition of shuffling music now, so I'm hoping within the next few episodes that we will be able to insert shuffling music as we shuffle away. All right.
Okay, so are you gonna laugh? I'm
gonna laugh at the card I drew because we've talked about it already today. So.
Oh, okay. Too funny. Oh, I know what you pulled.
What did I pull?
The devil.
Yeah, I did actually. I pulled the devil card.
I pulled two.
Okay.
I didn't pull two. Two jumped out. If anybody knows me, they know I'm a terrible shuffler and cards jump out. And I will honor them if they're like upside down, like if I can see them. So I'm going to talk about both of them. We're going to go crazy today and do things differently.
You go.
Okay. So I'm using the Aquarian Tarot by David Palladini. The first card that came out is the Two of Rods, and this is the Two of Wands. We've talked about this card on the show before, and I love this. It's the Two of Rods, the Two of Wands really is about a choice that you have to make. If we look at the Ace again, you're being presented with an opportunity, a possibility of something, a project, or something that you want to do, something that really is like on fire. Like we're talking about the suit of fire, right? So something that's inspiring, it really lights you up. And then what are you going to do? Like how are you going to make that choice? And I've seen a few different ways of looking at this card. I usually look at it as are you going to stay in your comfort zone or are you going to go big with this choice, right? Like sometimes we kind of play things small because that's comfortable to us. But this might try to push you out of your comfort zone a little bit. Usually he has the world in his hand and he's looking out in the ocean. So it's kind of like, where really can you take this?
Mhm.
And it's also about there's no bad decision in this card. Like whatever choice you make is going to be a good one. Just kind of where are you going to go with that? And the other card that popped out with it is the Hanged
The Hangman.
Man,
Well,
which I think these two play really nicely together
mhm.
because the Hanged Man is really about pausing, right? And in this case, about making a decision. So, how can you pause, like intentionally? How can you step back and look at the situation from a different perspective and be like, sometimes I really do play safe. And maybe if I kind of step back and look at this differently, I could go really big with this. So I think whatever decision you're having to make, it's going to be fun. It's going to be something that's really inspiring and look big picture rather than just kind of seeing what you see all the time. When I see the hangman, this is my downward facing dog card. When I relate that to yoga, it's like when we're in that position, it's like you're looking at everything upside down. What do things look like when it's upside down? And oh my gosh, I'm going to relate this to to the haute couture video the Christian Dior
All right.
video.
Yeah, yeah, of
When
course.
she met the hanged man, everything flipped upside down and she was able to see something she couldn't see before and she was able to press this button like on a fireplace or something that opened up another door. So it's like you can't see things if you're always looking at it in the same way. So flip it upside down and see if you can notice something different. So I these two were meant to come out and like
And they did.
go back to
Yeah, yeah.
our tarot and popular culture. So there you have it. What would you say about those two cards, Peter?
I wouldn't add much. I often think of the Two of Rods or Two of Wands as an opportunity to explore the road less traveled. So we
Mm,
think about the concept of a passion project, a creative endeavor, because we are, as you mentioned, in the realm of fire, and we've kind of just started this project. We're at the very early stages. The seed that has brought us forward in this project has just happened prior. It's often the ace of rods or the ace of wands. So we're often faced with, as you mentioned, a choice. And I think sometimes it's am I going to take the road less traveled or am I going to take the road more traveled?
mhm,
It might also, I think, as you had mentioned, am I going to take this creative project in the box or out of the box? Am I going to go in a direction? And I think you use these words. Am I going to go into my comfort zone or out of my comfort zone? So sometimes the two of wands, it takes something that we're passionate about. It takes something that is really driving our creative force, and it's
mhm,
putting us at a fork in the road. It's saying we have a decision that we have to make before we get too far along because we're at the early stages to take our project, to take our endeavor, to take the work that we're doing, to take the idea, if it's creative idea, to take it in one direction or in another direction. So that's we think of this card in a very similar way. The same thing with the Hangman. I don't think I'd have anything to add at all. It's a card of, I always say it's a 180-degree perspective. I would add a popular culture link, though, not to the card itself, but to the concept. I talk about this in my beginner's tarot class or I might talk about it in the major arcana, but I like to link major arcana cards to personal connections, and I connect this one to Robin Williams' teaching movie, whose title, The Dead Poet Society.
mm,
And it's the scene where he gets all the students in his class to stand up on his desk and to look at the classroom from a different perspective and then to step
mm.
down. And I often think that scene does such a good job of representing the idea behind the hangman. So that's the only thing that I would add. I'd add to
Ah,
that.
I'm gonna add something else.
Yeah, 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 of course.
this is what happens when we talk about tarot. Um, Sometimes too, when we see the hangman, we can think about surrendering, right? Like almost like being like,
Yes.
okay, I'm just going to pause and I'm going to surrender to what is, right? So how can we make a decision about something that we're really excited about in this state of surrendering and almost like, okay, I am going to get out of my comfort zone, right? Standing on top of a desk, like is standing on top of your professor's desk at
Right.
university,
Yeah.
right? That's like a whoa, I don't know if I'm that comfortable to do something like that, but it's like, well, I'm going to surrender and I'm going to um like actually
Mhm.
go for it and do that. So how can we surrender
Right.
to try to maybe get out of our comfort zone?
Yeah. And all the things that have to be in place for us to be able to surrender, trust, safety, like, vulnerability. They're all things as well that sit inside the space, that are connected to this card. So
Hmm. Hmm.
great addition. People, you're
Awesome.
getting three cards for the price of two today. So, as I had mentioned, I drew the Devil card, and I think we might have
Um,
talked about this card before, but not in this iteration. So,
mm,
me, I'm trying to. You talk about pushing outside of your comfort zone, so to use decks that I don't usually use, and so this is the Terror of the Abyss by Anne Turian. I always, we always want to make sure we're mentioning the creator. This is nothing like the Rider-Waite Devils. So this is a person. Um, they're bound in the same way the devil is bound, but they're bound by themselves. They're actually bound by things that are coming from what appears to be a heart, and it might be their
mm,
own heart. So I see this as, this looks like somebody who's actually trying to escape their own wants and desires, those things that are represented by our heart. Because the devil card is the card of I've always used this language, our addictions and our afflictions. It is the personification of the shadow. It is often about those things, that we don't want other people to know or that we want to keep hidden from them or ourselves. I'll put the card down now. Um, so when we get a card like this one, we often, ask ourselves, well, what am I currently doing that might be holding me back? Or what's holding me back or binding me from what I truly want to do? Like, and I'll hold the card back up again, right? Like if we think about the surroundings here, they're pretty bleak. Like there's not much, promise that's around this person. Like they are trying to escape the world that they live in. Um, so I also, because I'll always relate it to the Rider-Waite Smith, because I always think, the ties that bind that, because there are three characters in the Rider-Waite Smith. So it's not the devil that's bound, it's kind of the two subjects of the devil that are bound. And in reality, they're not actually tightly bound at all. So if you look at the Rider-Waite, they could take the chains that are around their necks, and they could literally lift them up and lift them over their heads. So sometimes it's a card about feeling trapped or
mhm,
feeling oppressed or feeling imprisoned that isn't necessarily the reality, that it is sometimes the appearance of entrapment as opposed to the actual act of entrapment. And then I couldn't get this card without, also relating it to what I often refer to as the sex, drugs, and rock and roll card, that sometimes the devil is a call to just let it all go, let it all hang out. Sometimes we got to indulge, sometimes we got to let loose. Sometimes we have to have the taste of the excess that is represented inside this card. We have to explore our fantasies. We have to, we have to try and dig deep into what could be the dark side of our true self. The last thing, again, for our astro people, this is Capricorn. Capricorn is an earth sign, interestingly enough. So it might also be the let's party now, let's get it out of our system,
mhm.
so that we can be the chill, systemic, grounded person that we have to be. So, those are all the things that I would throw out with the devil card. Bonnie, anything to add?
Yeah, this card it
Right.
packs a powerful
It really
punch
does.
because yeah, they're
Pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name.
exactly, exactly. So So Peter and I were just at a tarot conference a couple of weekends ago, and Sasha Graham did a beautiful presentation on working with the shadow. And what she's so incredibly articulated was that the shadow isn't just our fears, it's also our desires. It's where we hide things that, you know, maybe we don't want other people to see our desires. Maybe we don't think we're worthy enough of those desires. So when we think about the devil, we think about all those sort of things that scare us, or like, oh no, I don't want to go down there. But it's also those things that we really, really want. And what is stopping us from having those things? And those are our limiting beliefs. Those are our patterns. Those could be our addictions to feeling the lack of having those things. So we try to find happiness in something external. Those could be those material things that we're craving. So the devil really encompasses a lot. It doesn't just have to be like this doom and gloom, but it could be, what are those things that are deep down inside
Mhm.
of you that you really, really want and you're not shedding light on? We can also look at it as the ego. So it's really, really a powerful card, and a card I think of like great transformation. And it can also be like the devil can be charismatic, like in that
Of
song.
course.
Like he's kind of sexy in that song, right?
There
Uh,
is a deck, and I can't remember what it is, but the portrayal of the devil is like this, you know,
yeah, it's in the
he's
Light
a dark,
Seers
the light
Tarot by
series, right?
Chris
He's kind
Ann.
of dark and sexy,
Kind of
sort of,
hot.
right? Exactly. The hot devil, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, and he doesn't care. Like,
No.
if the devil wants to do something, he's going to go and do
Yeah.
it, and he doesn't care what anybody else thinks. So maybe having a little bit of that energy of
Mhm.
like, you know what? I do want that thing,
Yeah.
and maybe I shouldn't care so much about what other people think. So it's kind of how you look at that. And I also see it too as, how are you creating your own personal hell on earth, right? A lot of times we're creating our
Yeah.
own hell. So how can we help ourselves to get out of that? Because again, we're not the only person keeping us bound to that is
Is
our
us.
own
Right.
beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's not to diminish what people are going through, because it
Correct.
can be a card of great healing and
Mhm.
transformation, but definitely a wake up call to see where in your life you could use some support or some help to get you out of that situation if something's a little bit a heavier for you that you're going through. So,
Yeah, great. No, thank you. Thank you for that. Cause I agree. I think, but it is a very powerful card. And it's so funny. We talked about music and you had talked about Sympathy for the Devil. When you were talking, do you know what other song went into my head?
what?
Spice Girls, Tell Me What You Want, What You Really, Really Want. And I was like, also, like, a sentiment that could easily be linked to this card.
Hmm.
And my apologies to everybody if this is the song that is now going through your head. I didn't mean to do that. You have to go and listen to something and try and get that earworm out. But again, right, the sentiment is, sometimes we don't tell ourselves what we want, what we really, really want. And the devil card is there to remind us to say, well, you know what? That might be something that you actually, have to explore. So
Hmm.
I got some great cards today. So, for those of you that are hopefully longtime listeners, you're starting to get a sense. We've probably gone through about half the deck now, if not more. We're 27 episodes in. And for those of you who just found us recently, please note that at the end of every episode, we do this. We draw two cards. Today got a bonus one, got three.
Yep.
And our intention was always to make this a learning experience, to give you different perspectives and different interpretations on each of the cards. So again, if you have any comments or questions, even if there are topics that you'd like us to explore, please put them in the comments below. We would love to hear from you.
We'd love to answer your questions. So please let us know what you want us to talk about.
For
We're
sure.
more than happy to do that.
Yeah. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us today on Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. And we will say so long for now.
See you next time.